Good morning, all. I'm Yogesh from B English Honors, SDT University. Today, I'll be giving a video lecture on the poem Refugee, Mother and Child, written by Chinua Achebe. This poem was written by Chinua Achebe during Nigerian Civil War. Firstly, we will talk about the author. The author is, we all know that Chinua Achebe. He was well known for his post-colonial work. Chinua Achebe was a great Nigerian novelist, poet, and story writer. He was well known for his post-colonialism work. He had first-hand experience of the world of colonization, and he had shown that in his work. Like these, there was a novel written by him, Things Falling Apart. This was the first novel of his, and in this he showed how the Nigerian community, the African community, mainly the blacks, were tortured by Britishers who colonized them. Mainly, he talked about how black people were tortured by the white ones, mainly Britishers. This was the most popular work of African literature. Things Falling Apart, which was written by Chinua Achebe. This was the most famous work of African literature. The poem, like Refugee, Mother and Child, has proved that he is not only master in novels but also in poems. In these type of poem, he also talk about how the people were tortured, were ill-treated, were living in refugee camp because there were no place to live. There was starvation, there was poverty, whole in the whole society. He is considered as the father of African literature, not only through his literary work but also through his promotion of many agendas for Nigeria and Africa. He'll help to reshape the understanding of African literature and culture. And he also took part in a different movement started by the people so that their country can get freedom. He was first one to get Commonwealth Poetry Prize. So many of you didn't know about this Commonwealth Poetry Prize. It was given to first published book of English poetry from a country other than United Kingdom. We all know that English is a language of United Kingdom, but the other country which write something like poems, novels, or anything, mainly poems, this prize was given to those people, and he was the first one to get Commonwealth Poetry Prize. So now we'll talk about the poem. The poem is written in free verse. There is no rhyming scheme in the poem. The length of stanza differ from one another. This poem has very melancholic air. The poem tells about the colonization, and it was written during the Nigerian Civil War, as I already told you. The main strand of the poem is that how real it is. Not only poems talk about dietic odor of dying children with such a blunt language. It shows us picture of refugee camp somewhere in Africa. The picture shown in this poem shows that how people were suffered during these while living in these refugee camp, and this poem mainly talk about a mother and a child, mainly two different mother and child. These camps were full of poor people who were thrown out of their homes. The people who live in a particular home and they were thrown out from their own home, which they built, which they made, which in which they live happily. They were thrown out because of some external reasons, and for that this poem is written. The children were dying slowly because of poverty and disease, mainly diarrhea. Central theme of this poem is motherhood. And so now I'll read the poem for you. Refugee, Mother and Child, a poem by Chinua Achebe. No Madonna and child could tough that picture of mother tenderness for a son she soon would have to forget. The air was heavy with odor of diarrhea, of unwashed children with washed out ribs and dried up bottoms, struggling in labored steps behind blow empty bellies. Most mother there had a long cease to care, but not this one. She held a ghost smile between her teeth, and in her eyes the ghost of mother's pride as she combed the rust-colored hair left on his skull, and then, singing in her eyes, began carefully to part it in another life. This would have been a little daily act of no consequences before his breakfast in school, and now she did it like putting flowers on a tiny grave. So this poem mainly talk about, according to me, let's talk about three type of mother. The first one we will start with Mother Madonna, who is Saint Mary, who was the mother of Jesus Christ. So how this poem is compared to Saint Mary, we will discuss about this. Saint Mary was a mother of Jesus. In the beginning only, poem shows a mother who's holding infant Jesus in her arms. This shows a picture that this poem is going to be a good one. That how mother took care of a child. This poem is going to about that, but it was totally different. Saint Mary or Mother Madonna loves her child because Jesus is a savior of mankind and he is the son of God, because of which her child is worshipped. This all were the reason why the mother Saint Mary loves her children. Particular in this poem, this is shown that I'm not saying in my personal views, but in this poem, this is shown that Saint Mary just love her child because he was the savior of the society and he was the son of God. Now poet introduce us to a mother who is poor, ordinary. The mother knows that her child is slowly dying, so she thinks that there is no use of caring her child. Other mothers knows that about the truth, and they became careless about their dying children. This is the futile for them. That in refugee camp, we all know that there's no proper food, there's no proper sanitation or nothing else. So mother were not taking care of their child, and this was a very drastic situation that a mother left a child uncaring. In these also, in these line also, on a particular line which is written, most mothers there had long ceased to take care, but not this one. Now here is the comparison of two mothers. That one who has ceased or left caring of her child, but another mother who was taking care of her child was another one. They were living in the same situation. They were living in the same tents, same refugee camp, but the mindset of both the mothers were different. So we'll go further and. So I'll talk about the love difference, how two mother um, have different type of love towards her children's towards her children. One of the mother who had left her child dying, and there was no another mother. There was another mother. She loves her child so much. Her love is infinite and divine. She doesn't want anything in return of her love and sacrifice from her child, because she know that her child is not going to be a savior of the society or anybody like Bill Gates or a very rich person. That child is not going to give her anything, no respect, no money, no good life. But then also she was taking care of that child, so I think this was a big thing. She was combing her his hair left on her skull and smiling doing this. So this shows that how that mother was connected to her child, and she was doing everything which she was loving everything which she was doing to her child. Now we will talk about the similarities between Mother Madonna and this mother in this poem, which was caring of her child. This mother of a child who is in a refugee camp is smiling while combing her hairs, even though when she knows her child is going to die. Because in refugee camp people can't survive, and in these situation kids can't even survive month or 2 months. So she knew that he is going to die. In the same way, in the Mother Madonna knew that her child will be nailed to the cross for the benefit of the humanity. And then also she was smiling while taking care of. In many photos, you can say that you can see that Mother Madonna is smiling while carrying her baby Jesus in her hand. So both the mother which live in refugee camp and Madonna, they have some similarities, but according to me there were some dissimilarities also. Mother Madonna was smiling because she knew that this son is going to give me the respect and whole thing. Everything, every person in this earth is going to worship her child and her too. So maybe this was a situation that why she was smiling. But the mother who was in refugee camp, she doesn't want anything from her child. She was just loving her child as it is. There was no she doesn't want anything from that child, and she knew that that poor child is not going to give anything. So now we will talk about some themes related to this poem. The very first theme of this poem is motherhood, as we shown that the title of this poem talk about refugee mother and child. Obviously, a mother is going to the main theme of this poem. The poem mainly talks about the love of different mothers towards their children. Some have left caring their children, some are loving them. So we can say that mental illness, which was in the people of those camps, which was present in their minds while living in those refugee camp, that was mother had left caring their child. We can sense the depression in their life. A normal mother who was living in a house, she will never stop caring or loving a child. Even though that is a bastard, that person is doing a wrong thing, but then also mother is everywhere to love you. Every relative can stop talking to you or favoring you, but your mother can't do this. Your mother will always love you, even when you are bad, even when you are good. Second theme will be sadness. We all know that the people who were living in these camps have very less chance of living, and because of no food, no proper sanitation, no proper nutrition. So I don't think they were happy. So this will be the theme, that they were sad. Everywhere there was a sadness. They were thrown out of their house. They didn't even have food to eat or to survive. And the third one, will talk about the condition of camps. Children suffering from malnutrition and mother left their children, shows how disturbing the situation of camps was. So all of this talk about how these refugee camp, which were made during the time of world wars, this was a disturbing theme for every type of human. The people living in these camps, they only know that how difficult was the situation while living in these camps. At last, I will like to give you conclusion about this poem. This poem tells us about the war, destroy the life of common people. What are the conditions they have to face in their life, and the people who were thrown out of their house, they only know that how they are going to survive in these streets with no proper food, no sanitation. It tells us the horrifying state of life in which some people lived. In these conditions also some people survived and they are living their life. This poem gives us a different lifestyle of a child who lives in these camps than that of a person who live in perfect home. At last, in this poem, it is written that there was no consequences before his breakfast in school, and now she putting like a flower on a tiny grave. Here, this shows that how a normal guy or normal child goes to school, having breakfast, mother carrying her and making her a lunch, and everything will be perfect in his life. But the child who is there in these camps, that child only knows that what is the situation of him. He doesn't have these breakfasts or schools. He just want food to survive, and that is also not given to him in these camps. um, in all over this poem we know, and I also tell that the main essence of this poem is motherhood. But somewhere, according to me, this poem tells more about the wars and the destructive nature of the wars. Because at the time when this poem was written, there was a Nigerian civil war was going on. Those who don't know civil war is a type of war which happens between within the country. Like there are two groups within the country and they are fighting for some for anything. Many there are some like people were protesting against a law, and some people are favoring that. So there's a fight in between them, and maybe that fight become very large, and that will convert into a civil war. So it is a type of civil war. In that condition this was written, and the whole poem, the author Chinua Abe wrote about the theory of colonization, mainly post colonization, how the other invaders, other people who ruled in their country, and they were not given proper lifestyle. So this poem mainly talks about that. This will be the all, and thank you for watching my video. Thank you.